For week 9, we continue with poetry. The readings for this week are voice, tone, and sound, and writing about poetry in your textbook. Theme for English B by Langston Hughes is a link. The other poems in the textbook are We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks, On Being Told I Don't Speak Like a Black Person by Allison Joseph, My Mother If She Had Won Free Dance Lessons by Cornelius Eady, Nani by Alberto Rios, Cold as Heaven by Judith Ortiz Kofer, and A Note on My Son's Face by Toy Derricott. The poems this week will focus on voice, tone, and sound. Poems are meant not only to be read, they are also meant to be heard. In reading for voice, the key question to ask is whether the I speaking in the poem is that of the author or if it's a character different from the author. The questions you should ask are, who is speaking? What are the characteristics of the speaker? And how does the voice shape the point of view of the poem? Let's look at two poems and compare them for the voice of the speaker. The poem Eating Alone by Lee Young Lee is about the speaker's father. Decide whether the voice you hear in the poem is that of the author or of a character separate and different from the author. Describe the voice you hear as you listen to the poem. What characteristics can you ascribe to the voice in the poem? Looking at an author's biographical information can help you better determine who the I is in the poem. Here it seems that the voice we hear in the poem is that of Lee Young Lee's. Now, let's look at another poem about a father by Theodore Rothke. The poem is My Papa's Waltz. This is another poem about a son's memory of his father. Listen for the voice and tone. Pay attention to the diction, the connotations, and images, and compare this father and son relationship with the father and son relationship with that of Eating Alone. Here the tone of the poem is quite different from the first one. The speaker is recalling a memory of his father as a child. How does that affect the tone of the poem? When we are talking about tone, we are describing the poet's attitude toward the subject and how the poem affects the reader. Is the tone serious, playful, formal, ironic, or dark? Diction, word choice, images all contribute to tone. In the poem, Eating Alone, what is the mood of the poem? Does Eating Alone give you a different feeling than My Papa's Waltz? The first poem recalls a pleasant, nostalgic memory. The tone speaks of emotion and affection. The sensory words and the images convey the speaker's deep emotion as he describes his walk with his father. Look at the words and images the poet uses to associate with his walk with his father. Now look at My Papa's Waltz. In this poem, the tone is dark and describes a dysfunctional relationship. The word whiskey suggests that the father has a drinking problem. The mother's countenance could not unfrown itself, battered on one knuckle. Such choice of words suggests an attitude toward the father, which is very different from the tone in Eating Alone. Tone is a central part of the total interpretation of a work. Many aspects of a poem contribute to tone, such as choice of words, ways of phrasing, understatement, and overstatement. For your poetry explication paper, go back to the weekly schedule and download the sample explication of the poem, Theme for English B by Langston Hughes. The student writer analyzes tone in his paper. Some of the terms you should be familiar with when talking about sound are alliteration, consonance, assonance, repetition, rhyme, onomatopoeia, that are all defined in your textbook. Read the poem aloud a few times. Pay attention to the sounds of words as well as combination of sounds. Listen for the way sound and rhythm work together. A good poem is similar to a good musical composition, in which all the parts work together to produce one total effect. After you've read the poems, go to the video link and watch the video, Images and Rhythm in Poetry. Watching the video will help you understand how images, sound, and rhythm contribute to the effect and meaning of a poem. Viewing the video is one way to help you put your ideas together to start writing your poetry explication paper.